turned into a fight. And as top Democrats and Republicans focus on jobs, agreement seems to be in short supply.
Our jobs agenda for months was held up, set aside, and held up the work of Congress and our ability to do something about the economy, which was being held hostage. Rather than working with Democrats to create jobs, creating legislation, Republicans insist on reckless cuts that hurt our economic recovery.
We've tried President Obama's approach. It's failed. It's time for something new. The new approach we're suggesting isn't aimed at pleasing any party or constituency. It's aimed at nothing more than giving back to the American people the tools they need to do the work Washington has not been able to do on its own.
Jonathan Strong is a staff writer for Roll Call. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Despite all the disagreement, you say there's one area where the president and House Republicans seem to agree. What area is that?
Right. Well, it's a tax cut aimed at businesses, and I think it's fair to say that last week the relationship between the congressional Republicans and President Obama plunged to new lows with that war we had over scheduling the joint session in Congress. But there is a place where their rhetoric matches up, and that's a tax cut aimed at businesses.
Let's talk about Obama's plan, or what we know about that plan so far. $300 billion in federal spending and tax cuts, one-year extension of the payroll tax cut, and there's talk of extending that to employers as well as employees as well. Infrastructure spending, direct aid to states and local governments, and raising some tax revenue. Is this the type of plan that's politically feasible right now?
Well, there's two questions here in terms of the political fallout from the plan. We reported this morning in Roll Call that the liberals in Congress are very keen on what this plan will say, and they're expecting Obama to go big and bold. I don't think that $300 billion number that we're talking about would be what they're talking about, since most of it is swallowed up by the payroll tax continuation. The other dynamic is what can get through the Republican House. And yesterday, in a letter to President Obama, Eric Cantor and John Boehner signaled that they wouldn't be up for any more stimulative spending.
I read a few hours ago that there were some key Republicans who were planning to boycott the president's speech. They weren't going to even show up. Among them, South Carolina Senator Jim DeMint, a few others as well. What does that say? The fact that some Republicans won't even show up to hear the president, what does that say about the state of affairs in our nation's capital?
It shows a big gap between the parties. It's gotten personal in some respects, and for those members, they say they're so frustrated with the plans that never get to specifics that they're not going to sit there for another speech.
A lot of these plans that we've heard so far, whether it's Romney's plan or Huntsman's plan or what we know about the president's plan, a lot of these plans seem fairly similar in a lot of ways. Is there anyone out there? Is there a plan that's being offered up that's radical?
Well, Huntsman's plan was pretty bold in terms of just completely shaking up the tax code. But I think the
it was short on specifics.
Well, I mean, it was, but it was a simple enough plan that you didn't have to be specific. I mean, he said it cut out all of the loopholes and breaks for special industry sectors.
All right, Jonathan Strong, Roll Call. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate your time today.
Thanks a lot.
And folks, don't forget, you